Good morning, everyone. It's June 16th, 2026, regular council meeting. I will call the meeting to order. This meeting is being held in person and by teleconference in accordance with Municipal Government Act. Council chambers are open to the public and remote participation is available. The chair may invite public comments on specific items. When recognized, please state your name. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes in person or 10 minutes to a group in accordance with the procedure bylaw. This meeting is being recorded and may be published online. Please mute your device unless speaking. All persons have the right to attend. However, disruptive behavior may result in removal at the discretion of the chair. We thank you for your cooperation and understanding. Nobody's participating remotely today, so none of that. There's an agenda in front of us. Is there any additions, deletions, or changes? Administration.
Through the chair to council, administration would like to request 2 items be added to the agenda. One is the request for compensation for tree removal within the Lakes of Muirfield community, and the other is an in-camera, the compensation for tree removal added to 7.5, and then we'd like an in-camera on utility services update under the Access to Information Act, Section 29, advice from officials to be added to agenda item 8.
Thank you. So a 7.5 and an 8.1, I would say. Anything else? Motion to approve an amended agenda.
I move that the council accept the amended agenda.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? We'll be voting via e-scribe. I'll call the question. That's carried. Is there any council notices of motion? Seeing any? We'll move into section 3, bylaw readings and public hearings. Our first one is a public hearing. I'll need a motion to recess from the regular council meeting. Go ahead.
Also move.
Okay. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. And that's carried. Good morning, everyone. As per section 192 of the procedure bylaw 25-36, this public hearing will be conducted in the following order. Staff report by administration, presentation by the applicant, presentations by the public in support of the proposal, presentations by the public in opposition of the proposal, rebuttal presentation by the applicant limited only to the comments read or heard in opposition to the proposal, final question of administration, and council motion to close the public hearing. The final question of administration will be from, I just want to clarify, is from council to staff, basically. The applicant will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Any individual supporting or opposing the proposal will have up to 5 minutes to speak, and any groups of individuals will have up to 10 minutes to speak. The applicant will then have a maximum of 10 minutes to present the rebuttal. If there's any questions relating to the process, please refer to the procedure bylaw. Can administration verify that the notice of public hearing was circulated in accordance with the Municipal Government Act?
Through the chair to council, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Is there any written submissions that are not in the package?
No, we haven't received any.
Thank you. If anyone comes to the mic, we kindly request that anyone speak and state their name and address for the record. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Council. Hassan Said with Planning and Development Services. Today I'm presenting Bylaw 2026-36, which proposes to redesignate 1.21 hectares of land from the Country Residential District to Agricultural General District. The subject lands are located approximately 3.85 kilometers north of the hamlet of Gleason and 1.35 kilometers north of the intersection of Range Road 231 and Township Road 224. The adjacent land uses are predominantly agricultural. The application proposes to redesignate the 1.21 hectare portion of the lands, which is referred to as Lot 1 in the aerial photo on the agenda package there, from Country Residential District to the Agricultural General District. And the application proposes to do this redesignation to facilitate a subsequent boundary adjustment. In terms of servicing, Lot 1, in terms of development, Lot 1 contains an existing farmstead and accessory buildings serviced by existing private water and wastewater systems. Access to Lot 1 is provided via an existing approach from Range Road 231 to the east. Lot 2 is the remainder parcel at 62.48 hectares, currently undeveloped and intended for a continued agricultural use. Given Lot 2's size and its purpose for agricultural intents, site assessments for water and wastewater servicing were not required. The proposed redesignation accommodates an existing farmstead use on Lot 1, and as such, it demonstrates efficient land use by reflecting the existing conditions of the land, and it also seeks to minimize any impact to surrounding agricultural areas. These are all consistent with the policies of the Municipal Development Plan. The proposed parcel also meets the site regulations in the Agricultural General District, which is an appropriate district based on the parcel size and intended use of the lands. This would be facilitated by the subsequent boundary adjustment that comes into play after the redesignation is approved. In terms of recommendations, before I move on to the recommendations, just wanted to note that there is an error on Schedule A. If I pull it up here. So there is an error in Schedule A of the proposed bylaw, which identifies the subject area as 2.22 hectares. It has been updated, as you can see on the screen over here, to reflect the actual subject area, which is 1.21 hectares. So the amended version would just need to be adopted through a motion before the actual redesignation is approved. I will move on to my recommendations now. So notice of the public hearing was sent in accordance with the MGA. No submissions were received. Administration recommends approval as per the motions provided and the addition of the amended Schedule A as well. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions? Not seeing any. Is there a presentation by the applicant?
To the chair, I don't believe the applicant is here today.
Is there any presentations by the public in support of the proposal? Second time, is there any presentations by the public in support of the proposal? Third and final time, is there any presentations by the public in support of this proposal? Is there any presentations by the public in opposition to this proposal? Again, is there any presentations by the public in opposition to this proposal? Third and final time, is there any presentations by the public in opposition to this proposal? Seeing and hearing none, there'll be no need for a rebuttal presentation. Is there any final questions of administration? If not, motion to close the public hearing. Councillor Hebbs.
I'll move that council moves to close the public hearing for bylaw 2026-06.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? I'll call the question. And that's carried. Just a question on the motions in front of us. You had mentioned it should say as amended.
Yes, that is correct.
So do all of the motions subsequent or just the first one has to say as amended? All of them? Okay. Okay. For awareness. Okay. Council's wishes.
I'll move that council moves first reading of bylaw 2026-06, this being a bylaw for the purpose of amending land use bylaw number 2016-01 to redesignate Lot 1, Block 1, Plan 1210951 within Northeast 26, 22, 23, west of the 4th, from Country Residential District to Agriculture General District, as shown on the attached amended Schedule A, forming part of this bylaw.
Thank you. Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? You have a question?
Did the amendment get into that motion? It did. Okay. Thank you.
I'll call the question. And that's carried. Councilor Bigger?
Move the council move second reading of bylaw 2026-06
As amended.
as amended.
Thank you.
As amended.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion? I will call the question. That's carried. Permission to hold third. Councilor Clayton.
Move that council grants permission to hold third and final reading of bylaw 2026-06 as amended.
Thank you. Motion's on the floor. Any discussion? I'll call the question. That is carried unanimously. Anyone? Councilor Hebbs.
I'll move the council moves third reading of bylaw 2026-06 as amended.
Thank you. Motion on the floor for third and final reading. Any discussion? I'll call the question. That's carried. Thank you. We'll move on to item 3.2 DP 2026-045.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Suzanne Hayes, Development Officer with Wheatland County. I will be presenting one application this morning, beginning on page 15 of the agenda package. It is DP 2026-045 for home-based business type 2. The location plan is on page 52 of the package. It is located within the lakes of Muirfield, 75 meters west of the intersection of Muirfield Crescent and St. Andrews Close. The application is for childcare for up to 6 children. Pages 53 through 55, we have a site plan and some aerial photos. Some details: the applicant is proposing a home-based business to provide childcare for up to 6 children, ages 6 months to 10 years, operating Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The business would be operated by the homeowner with 1 part-time non-resident worker as required. Page 55, we can see an aerial photo of the area for some context. The property is 1/2 of a semi-detached dwelling, which is in cell 2 in the Lakes of Muirfield, which is the only cell that allows semi-detached dwellings. The unit shares a common wall with the adjacent residence, which is a key consideration in evaluating potential offsite impacts such as noise and livability concerns. On pages 56 and 57, we just have some photos of the house, the duplex. So this file began as an enforcement matter in October of 2025 after reports a day home was operating on the parcel. In March 2026, the applicant submitted a DP application for the care of 3 children, but the proposal was later revised to 6 children. Complaints were received in April 2026 that the use had begun operating before approval, and the applicant was advised on more than one occasion not to operate without a development permit. A day home is not a use within the DC7 Cell 2 district, while a home-based business type 2 is discretionary. Administration's position is that the proposal exceeds the intended scope of an HBB2, a home-based business type 2, and more closely fits the land use bylaw definition of a day home. The proposal does not align with the MDP policy 3.7.2, which directs uses exceeding a home-based business to a more appropriate business area and land use district. A home-based business type 2 is limited to an average of 5 customer visits per day. Administration found that care for 6 children would not align with that traffic threshold when considering parent drop-off and pickup activity. There are also concerns with parking and congestion, as St. Andrew's Close has only one entrance and egress. An additional concern was identified regarding noise and livability impacts to the adjacent unit sharing the common wall. Page 59, we can see the circulation area, and pages on page 58 and 59. So the Lakes of Muirfield Homeowners Association opposed the application due to the suitability of the semi-detached lot, existing noise complaints and traffic concerns. The internal circulation comments from the peace officers raised concerns about likely noise and parking complaints, and the neighbor circulation resulted in 1 response in opposition and 11 responses in support. So on this diagram, you can see in the gold color, let me zoom out just a bit here. The gold color are in favor and are outside of the circulation area, so without the community, throughout the community. And the green color is in favor within the circulation area. Where there's 2 squares, that means I received 2 responses from the same household. And the red color is not in favor. And then this bluish color is the subject parcel. The circulation responses demonstrate that there is public support and a desire for childcare services in the community. However, administration notes that popularity alone is not a planning basis for approval, and that council must weigh community need against land use compatibility, bylaw compliance, and the broader public interest under the MGA. Some key considerations are that the proposal exceeds the parameters of an HBB2 and is more consistent with a day home. A day home is not a use listed within DC7 Cell 2. The proposal does not align with MDP 3.7.2 or LUB Section 8.15, which is the section on home-based businesses. There are unresolved concerns resulting noise, traffic, parking, and impacts on the adjacent residents, and the applicant has demonstrated non-compliance through operating without approval and exceeding the proposed limits during the review process. A more appropriate alternative may be a future amendment to the DC7 district to add day home as a use, which would allow for a proper public hearing and policy review process. In conclusion, on page 15, we have staff's recommendation, and that is that council refuse the application with the 6 reasons listed in the report. In summary, the reasons are based on non-conformity with the land use bylaw, lack of alignment with the municipal development plan, incompatibility with the site context, and unresolved offsite impacts. Please advise if you would like me to read the reasons out loud. So council has the standard 3 options to consider, which are on page 22, which is that they accept the recommendation, that they don't accept staff's recommendation, or that they provide an alternate. And should council choose option 2, that the recommendation not be accepted, I have prepared a list of conditions for your review. And that concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have questions.
Thank you. Is there any questions for administration? Not seeing any. Council's wishes? Discussion? I can discuss a little bit beforehand since it's my area. I agree with the report here, and it's kind of goes back to the original design of Muirfield. It was a retirement community, a gated community, and this is where we see that it's actually not the case. There's a lot of young families there, but it's trying to put a square peg into a round hole kind of thing. And that area is very tight. It does only have a cul-de-sac at the end. It is duplexes. And it's not all full built out yet, and there's lots of traffic in there, and there's very few places to park. So I support the motion, or sorry, staff's recommendation. I'm just trying to think of another solution for this, and it maybe something might involve the layout the hall or something like that, where they could do something and offer a service, but that would be something that they'd have to look at because they have a playground there, they have a bigger area, and it's away from everything. But that might be something or some other building in the future. But right now, I just can't see this.
I agree, and I agree with administration that I think we should bring it forward as a public hearing to introduce a new land use, a discretionary land use in Muirfield for that. I do think that childcare is needed all across the county and all of our communities, and so I think this is going to become more and more requests for this kind of development permit. So I do think that we should do it the right way. Do have a discretionary use in certain areas maybe, but that would come to a public hearing, and we'd hear from the community members about where they'd like to see them and mitigating strategies around having them in the community. I think that's the best way to go. So I'd be prepared to put a motion on the floor that council refuse DP 2025-045 for a home-based business type 2 for the following reasons 1 through 6.
Thank you.
Through the chair, I see that there's an error in where it says that council refused 2025. It should be 2026. My apologies.
Okay. That's what I meant, 2026.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any discussion?
So do we need to make another motion to have this brought back to consider a new land use, a discretionary land use in Muirfield? Just to close the loop on it.
Go ahead.
Through the chair, I would suggest, yes, a motion directing administration to review this and bring it back would be appropriate.
This one first and then.
One motion at a time. Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
Just for the newer counselors that are here, do you understand why it's direct control? So Muirfield was direct control, basically council's discretion because of the development concerns that were there, ongoing development concerns. So is there something? Go ahead.
Through the chair to council, just for clarification, as administration was just doing this, is that as we have a few, it's not an application. If council wishes for us to bring it forward as administration and the county making the application to amend the DC bylaw to consider it, or to have the applicant that wishes to have daycare or someone else in the community bring that forward as an application to amend the DC bylaw.
Something to think about when that motion
So
comes forward. Yeah.
if it's the case that it's left to residents, we would suggest we don't need a motion and that we could convey that back to the applicant.
I think that's probably the best route. If residents are interested in it, they can bring it forward. Yep. Okay.
Perfect. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? I will call the question. That's carried unanimously. We'll move on to DP 2026-075.
Good morning, Council. My name is Kendra Rosada, the Planning and Development Technician with Wheatland County, and I am here presenting the application which begins on page 60 of the agenda package for DP 2026-075. This is an application for an existing dwelling and an existing accessory building structure requiring variances within the Lakes of Muirfield. The location plan can be found on page 66, which shows the parcel is approximately 80 meters west of the intersection of Muirfield Boulevard and Muirfield Crescent. I will scroll down to page 67, which shows our real property report. This application is to address two non-compliant building structures located on the subject plans. A compliance review identified two structures which do not meet setback requirements. The dwelling does not meet the setback to the front property line, and the shed does not meet the setback between building structures or to the side yard setback to the west property line. On the following page is a zoomed in image of the measurements on the real property report. So the north side of the dwelling, 6.01 meter measurement. And this indication here is the shed, which is adjacent to the house. In order to receive a compliant status, a variance would be required for the two buildings. Alternatively, the building structures might either be removed from the parcel, a permit may be issued with the requirement that the structures be moved into compliance, or approval of a development permit with a variance to the setback is required. The variance request for the setbacks has been submitted as follows. The dwelling measuring 6.01 meters to the north property line, where the required setback is 6.10 meters. And the shed, which is located on the west side of the property, 0.06 meters from the property line and 0 meters from the dwelling. The required setback is 1.22 meters from the property line and 1.52 meters from the dwelling. The property is surrounded by similarly sized residential properties within the Lakes of Muirfield. And here is an image of the dwelling. The circulation notice was sent to adjacent landowners +2. The responses received are as follows. The Lakes of Muirfield Homeowners Association did not provide any comment or response. Western Irrigation District did review the development permit application and had no concerns or objections. Our internal circulation feedback from fire services indicated the location of the shed is a potential fire hazard, both for the dwelling of the applicant as well as the neighboring dwelling. In the event of a fire, both dwellings would be in danger of catching fire. We did not receive any responses from adjacent landowners. So this is a photo of the street view of the home. You can see the shed on this side here. The following page does have a zoomed in image of that as well. It's a bit dark, but just to give you an idea of where it is located. There are no concerns regarding the variance to the setback from the dwelling to the north property line. Muirfield Boulevard is located to the north of the parcel, and the request is only 1% variance. Administration recommends approval of the variance request from the dwelling to the north property line. Regarding the shed, accessory building structures that are less than 9.29 meters square or 100 square feet in area are not required to obtain a development permit, provided they meet the minimum setbacks. The shed is 2.95 meters square or 31.74 square feet in size. However, it does not meet the required side yard setback of the DC7 district. The variance request to the distance between structures has raised concerns from fire services, who noted that allowing a relaxation could increase the potential fire hazard for both the subject dwelling as well as neighboring dwelling, as the shed cannot meet both setback between structures and the side yard. Administration recommends the shed be moved to another location on site in accordance with the land use bylaw requirements. In conclusion, administration recommends that council approve DP 2026-75 for an existing dwelling requiring a variance, and that the existing shed structure shall be moved from its existing location into compliance with the required setbacks, subject to the 4 conditions listed on page 60. Council has the standard 3 response options to consider: that council accepts or approves the recommendation as proposed, that council does not accept or approve the recommendation as proposed, or that council accepts or approves an alternative recommendation. That concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? I have one only because I was asked this question. So on the shed part, it's been there for quite a while. And here's the conundrum I'm in. So we can, because it's selling, we can tell them to move it, but there's nothing stopping the next owner from coming in and putting it right back where it was, because we only react on complaint. So it's kind of a catch it for a minute and put it, but there is room on the property at the back that there's, with the setbacks, this could go somewhere else on that property, correct? Okay,
Through the chair, that is correct.
thank you. Council's wishes.
Is there anything, like is there a way to say if that shed was fireproof? Like for instance, if it was tin, would that change anything?
Good question.
Through the reeve to council, without the fire chief speaking, I am aware that when we worked on other communities, when they didn't have the fire separation, there are methods that you can do for to get a higher fire rating for separation to not ignite to the next. But sometimes for that expense to do that kind of metal sheeting or whatever they need to do, it might be easier just to move the shed. So I really couldn't speak to whether they'd want to go to that extreme.
I believe it's a poly shed. Go ahead.
Just a question. I can understand the recommendation of the administration. I think that's wise to comply with the fire regulations. But the question comes from your statement. If a shed is put back in the same location, does that not require a development permit?
Through the chair, the structure, the size of the structure does not require development permit, but the fact that it is not within the required setbacks is why it was brought to our attention.
Typically, these ones get caught on a sale, right? Yeah. Yeah. And the other is we react on complaint basis, right? So if a neighbor complains or something, then we would deal with it. But other than that, we don't go looking for things. So council's wishes. Go ahead.
The council approve DP 2026-075 for an existing dwelling requiring a variance, and that the existing shed structure shall be moved from its existing location into compliance with the required setbacks, subject to the following conditions from 1 to 4.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? I'll call a question. That's carried. There's no presentation or delegations. We'll move on to consent agenda. Is there anything in the consent agenda that anybody wants to pull out and discuss? Go ahead.
I would like to remove the correspondence from Tyler Hill from Rocket Grid regarding our participation in the Strathmore Parade on August 1st.
Okay, thank you. That's 5.6. Anything else? Motion to do so.
So I'll make a motion to remove consent agenda. Item number, sorry, 5.6.
5.6.
And add it under item 6.1.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Call a question. That's carried. Motion to accept the rest as information. Want to do that at the end? We can do it now. Well, motion to accept the rest as information. Councillor Hebs.
I'll move that we do the rest of the consent agenda as approved, as listed
As information.
as information.
Thank you. Motions on the floor. Being typed up. Good. I'll call a question. That's carried. So we'll move on to item 5.6 under 6. Go ahead.
So I see we have an invitation to participate in the parade. We normally do, and I think we should continue to. It's good public relations and having us be out there in the public. It's always lots of fun. So normally we've had a friend of somebody with a truck, but maybe we needed.
I've talked to him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He'd be willing to do it again. So
Yeah.
that's kind of nice. I don't mind walking behind with candy.
I might be.
So I guess we should decide who all wants to come or can attend, and then
Yeah.
also I guess direct administration to respond that we would like to participate.
Okay. So typically the parade we've been in Strathmore, I believe 5 years or so or more, we've been going. The local resident, Mr. Drake, provides a truck usually. He brings it in and stuff. And I know Councillor Hebs and I talked about possibly going on horseback as well. We haven't decided if we're going to do that. So the timing now, because of the premier's breakfast is right after, so to load out animals after might be challenging. We have to talk about that. But yeah, go ahead.
I won't be able to attend that because I'm already scheduled to drive in the parade. So, but it is a good thing to do. Yes.
So I would just suggest anybody that wants to come, the times will be there and you know, once the parade starts, we can't, unless you want to run and chase the float down to get on or whatever. But typically we had, some of us hand out candy. Some of us, I don't like walking. That's too much work. But yeah, so I can fill out or contact them and say that we're willing to go into the parade again and figure out what we're going to have. What kind of.
Sure, or should we direct administration to respond on our behalf? It's probably the best. I'll make the motion to direct administration to respond to this, that we would like to participate.
So I have a comment.
I won't be able to attend. I got a prior commitment that day.
So I'm just thinking if we should, I love the truck and it's great and people are getting used to looking at it, but if it's just going to be Shannon and I probably walking behind, I don't know. And then you've got people walking. Maybe we should look at, maybe not this year, but start looking at something that's a little bit more like a ride on where all of council will feel comfortable going on it. We could do lawn chairs, I guess, in the back. You can't have no candy, but yeah. I don't know how comfortable I feel about you guys on horseback and me walking beside you. You're not gonna?
I've got a trailer you can use that's all set up to fairly quickly put together for the parade if needed.
Yeah. But I'm willing to go on it again, but just start thinking about stuff like that. Thank you.
We can discuss it.
Sorry, we can discuss it offline as well. And there's really no budget implications other than candy. And that's kind of, we got it in our budgets already individually. And then if there's a float or something that we wanted to do separate next year, I would suggest we look at that. I don't know if we have time to do much different than what we usually do, but yeah. In all likelihood, we'll probably be all on the float anyways, so. Yeah. Sorry, was there a motion on the floor? There was. Okay, motion on the floor. Okay. Any further discussion? I will call the question. And of course, if any staff wants to come.
Oh, yeah.
Be nice.
I was gonna say, you could hand out.
That's carried. New business, 7.1, we're moving really fast. 2027 preliminary budget planning. Now to go from a high to a low.
Morning, Council. Joel from Administration.
Welcome.
Appreciate the segue from budget candy discussion into 2027 budget. This next report
That's kind
found on page 125 of your agenda package. So I'll walk through some of the key components of this report, but essentially what administration is trying to do is just get the budget process started a little bit earlier this year. And then just recognizing the context of some of the things that were brought up during the final and kind of interim budget process in terms of our current reserve balances and tax strategies and asset management infrastructure requirements and those kind of things that were identified that are also brought forward again in this report. Just recognizing that context, trying to get a little bit more feedback and guidelines from council before we start really getting into the budget development. And it'll just give a little bit more rigor in terms of the interim process and just having some expectations from council on what to expect. And it'll just help change things up a little bit with that context of especially the asset management requirements that we have upcoming. So I will just kind of go initially into on page 126. We just provided a sort of a change proposal to the process. In terms of how the budget's done, there's not a lot of substantial changes proposed here. We found historically it's worked really well to open it up kind of early in July, our budget program, and let the managers go in there and just have that feedback process internally with administration. What we're proposing this time is those kind of light green sections. This would be the first one. June, July is presenting a high level overview to council. And that's what this report provides. Again, it's very high level that I'll just kind of go through and touch on near the end of the report of some estimates of the 2027 projected reserves and some of the strategies and funds that may be available depending on council's decisions. And so we're kind of inserting that in as an initial process here, just to kind of guide the process and a little bit more specifically going forward. And then as part of that process, the other addition that you'll note here is around mid-November. We're typically what we'll do is bring the capital budget and have the discussions around that with council in that mid to late November period. And that leads us into approving the budget in December, the interim budget. What we're proposing this time is to bring those capital discussions forward in October. And that will allow council time to review in detail all of those projects and make more specific decisions, have a bit more detail on the implications on deferring projects or going forward with them and deciding on what the priorities are. So those are the two key changes in terms of the timeline that are proposed for the upcoming budget process. So to bring some context into, again, the asset management requirements, this is just bringing forward our current asset management estimates, just to give council some context in terms of the projected value. You can see there that across all categories, there's $234 million estimated approximately over the current plus forward 10 years. And then what we did is just to provide a summary estimate of the annual requirement that would be depending on either a 10 or 20-year average. That works out to between $11.7 and $23.4 million. So if you're looking at funding that through annual reserve contributions, we're certainly not at that area yet, but that's part of this process, is making a plan to meet the asset and infrastructure demands with the revenue and the reserves and the funding that's required to meet that. So again, with us being pretty preliminary into this and not having gone into the 2027 capital plan in detail, what we did for the context for this report was we took the second year of the 2026 capital plan and used that total and the projects proposed in that plan of course you can see here there's the 2028 through 2030. It's essentially years 2 through 5 of the current capital plan, just to give council some context of or at least a starting point for discussion of what the expectation or what the desire for total spend might be. So based on that, you can see at this time, the second year of the plan for 2027, the total capital budget's $40 million. And then what we did here is we just kind of took out the regular funding sources that we can rely on as a county without either external sources, or if there was that last line item, you can see the $2 million. If there was no tax change or use of any of the other tax strategies that administration and council looked at during the 2026 budget process. If we take those funds out, essentially what we would have would be about $33 million in capital ask that would need to be funded through a combination of strategies that I'll get into in just a minute here. And if council, feel free, just because there's a lot of numbers here, if any council has any questions as I go through things or wants to wait to the end.
Councillor Clayton, I think
feel free to.
Question.
Great to see you start this process early enough to. Would you be willing to accept questions from the council through as to areas that we would like you to look at in your budgetary process in possible reductions or more expenditures, or so that each, like in roads and this kind of stuff, we can feed concerns that we've had from our residents where to look prior to getting the budget handed to us, so that you have an opportunity in your departments to take a look.
Through the chair, yes. So as Manager Joel had mentioned earlier, there's that schedule. Our hope is today is to kind of get the idea of a number or a constrained number of value for spend for operations, and then to take that back to administration and have them and say, okay, this is our guideline, and from there provide what we see from the asset management plan as priorities, and then in October, right, provide those along with all of the other requirements to council to provide that information to administration a lot sooner than we have before. And that's kind of the hope there, because as we're building up the budget, we still have to go and research and look into a lot of what assets need to be done before others. So there's quite a bit of work to do. And so that's why we're proposing October as being the initial view of a lot of that information, and then going from there.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just not wanting to wait necessarily till October to find out the questions that I'd like to ask, and then it's a little late to do some of the digging that we might like to take a look at. That's not that I have anything in specific right at the moment, but I'd like to start the questions ahead of time so that you have an opportunity to look at them. That's all.
Through the reeve to council, I would suggest it would be good that you give us the ideas, even though we're coming back, and this way it helps the general manager of transportation and so that he can look at those things if it works with the asset management plan, and then can work with his group and start planning ahead of time, and he'll have an idea of what kinds of things you would like to see cut or not cut. So I think any kind of comments that you could provide to him would help him with his future planning.
Go ahead.
Yes, and just to supplement through the chair, one of the options which Joel will present is we also intend to bring a report back with potential assets that we could look at as being maybe reduced in service level, perhaps even retired, and that will come much earlier as well.
Proceed.
Thank you. That was an excellent question. I would also add that if there's anything, because the focus of this report and is much on the capital and the infrastructure demand, because they are very high dollar, high ticket items, and the long-term implications for that. But certainly I would suggest that as council wants to prioritize or discuss the operating parts, that any suggestions or asks for prioritization on operating items could be also brought forward, and we can look at that during the budget development itself. So for sure, we're more than happy to look at any of those aspects.
Go ahead.
Just trying to think.
Just a question. Councillor Clayton brought up a concern. Did you want to add something to the list? Because they're just looking at the assets that are listed now. Was there a specific ask, or was there the process, or I don't feel your question was answered.
It's more a process of being able to input early to concerns so that we don't have to start trying to dance later in the process when we finally get the numbers. It just, I don't have anything specific because I'm just learning this organization, but just to give kind of an idea, we've got a gazillion kilometers of roads that we look after. And we grade those roads and maintain those roads. And it's one of the larger asset managements that we do. Do we, and I know we do, I kind of mentioned it already once before, but do we take a look at traffic on the roads to determine the amount of maintenance that we do by the traffic, and not by the fact that we've got a couple hours left in our day to do more roads? It's more of a less looking at how we do what we do and put the resources in the ones that are higher usage versus ones that are only used twice a year.
Through the reeve, yeah, as part of our processes for figuring out which roads do require more maintenance, we do traffic counts, and that does give us an idea of what roads will require more. There are more factors as well. Some roads hold up to traffic better than others, depending on what year it was built and where they're located. And so it probably comes down to that particular question about the particular quality of the surface of the road at the time. And we do tend to try to give more attention to the roads that have more traffic and need more work than other roads. I think going back to your original question, administration would be happy to hear from council early on if there are projects that council would like to see added to the program, or at least get some information on. And the earlier we can get that feedback from council, the better, because we can look into the projects, put some preliminary pricing together, and present that to council as part of the budgeting processes. Similarly for programs, if council wants to see new programs or eliminate programs or increase service levels or decrease service levels. The earlier council is able to give administration that feedback so that we can look into those ahead of the budget process and provide that feedback to council would be fantastic for us.
Councillor Bigger.
Yes, there's a 2-year, 3-year, up to 10-year road plan that you guys probably haven't seen yet. That probably should be coming back to council at some point soon.
Go ahead.
Do you take into account weather patterns? Just for a little content. 10 years ago, 12 years ago, 270 was put down for paving, and then it was canceled. So prior to them, that road was, the weather rained a lot more, especially in the spring. And that road, even with 4-wheel drive, half tons couldn't make it. That's a major road to get through that area. It's because of the fluid hauling that goes on, and the weather's wet, and that road just drops out. And then since about that era, it got drier and the road isn't so bad. But this last rain here in the spring, it was down to single lane again. It wasn't that deep rutted, but it was just the start. So if it doesn't rain again, the grader will come, smooth it over, and everybody will be happy. But it's that potential when the weather turns on us, that road really gets bad. So yeah, everybody wants it to rain, but I was just curious if it weather dependent, because if it turns, that road's going to need a lot more maintenance. And it's just not an idea of put more gravel on it, because that doesn't seem to help. It's the base, the traffic more than the base, I guess. It's when it gets wet and they put them loads on it. Yeah, you know what it's like. So I just want council to know that there's concerns when it turns wet out, especially in the East Country. It's fluids and it's hauled 24/7. And because it rains, a lot of people can stay off, but those fluids keep moving. We've had them pulled down the road with cats and stuff. So just curious.
Through the Reeve, I'd say yes, indirectly, we account for weather. I mean, we don't have any predictive models necessarily, but our managers and foremen and the graders do tend to get a feel of what roads get most impacted by weather when we do get the rain, and pay attention to that. Now, all roads get impacted to a certain degree, and then we try to do things like put road bans and things to protect those roads. We do find also that the roads that were built, say in the 50s, 60s, often don't, again, depending on where they are in the county as well, often don't hold up as well as the newer roads. And so we also do try and prioritize some of those older roads, and exactly to your point, where the base isn't as good or wasn't constructed as good as the standards that we use today, and prioritize those for reconstruction if they are higher traffic and also get worn down a lot faster because of the inadequacy of the road base. So we try and prioritize those ones for reconstruction. Hope that answers the question.
Without going into specific projects, I look at this as administration's coming to council to look and what is our comfort level on a cap on certain things, and they'll come back with the cuts that they see, and then that process will come forward. Like, we'll be involved in the process. There'll be things coming back and forth, and what's our comfort level with X, or do we increase taxes to a point where we won't be elected again? Simple as that. Go ahead.
Yes, through the chair, just to supplement what you said there. So yeah, we do intend to bring our list, but we also will bring what would be due anyways, so that council can see everything that's on the list and then be able to make priority decisions from there.
So, and for some that weren't here before, so we worked on an asset management plan over several years. It's come back and forth. We've been updated with costs and things like that. So now it's being implemented, but we are the ultimate responsible people for the money, the council. So we have to say what our comfort levels are and give direction back as to what priorities need to be set. They could be listing projects, priority 1, 2, 3, et cetera. And then if there's a specific project that you really have something that you want to bring up, then you definitely do that. But they're going to come at us with different data back and forth and try to figure out where our comfort level is and where the taxpayer is comfortable and how we're going to overcome the future work that we have to do. Go ahead.
One of the other questions in my head is that we know that we've got a lot of work coming down the road, and we've got this kind of thing here that gives us an idea what we're looking at for next year, the year after that. One of the things that kind of comes into mind is being able to let the public know ahead of time that we have to prepare either for a tax increase or try to get enough industrial buildings or projects being built to keep the tax levels for the common residents at a level that we can afford. And there's an awful lot of things that we don't feed through to the public, that it takes major investment by major industries in our county, and we've got 2 of them running right now that are going to make a significant difference. But to keep that going forward requires more development, and it's kind of a crazy circle that we're dealing with a lot of development things after the fact. But I think if we could give them an idea that it's coming down the road, we got to keep doing this.
In my opinion, I think that's exactly what this process is for, is to do that, for us to kind of give the public, this is public information right now, so we're discussing things. So it'll be looking what comfort level we're at, and then the realization of how do you balance the books is how it comes in. Councillor Kester, and then who else had their hand up? Councillor Hebb, sorry.
It's nice to dream ahead for future development, to pay more input. But you have to realize in the future, our linear is declining too. And eventually that'll be. So I think my biggest hope is just that we remain neutral. Our new development will replace the linear. And I think that's more of a realistic dream. Yeah.
Councillor Hebb and then administration.
So just for information purposes, last year, 1% tax increase was about 314,000 net. Is that still within a few thousand? Okay, thank you. On the borrowing thing, borrowing for infrastructure, like I'm very, very cool to that. I would rather borrow for a specific something that pops up, because if we borrow the money and got it sitting there, we're going to spend it, right? We think we will be prudent, but we got $1 million or $2 or $6 million sitting there in the bank borrowed. That's like, oh, we got to put that money to work. I'm very cool to borrowing money unless we absolutely need to. I really feel like just on an overview level that there's really 2 sides to any budget, and that's taxing or saving, and then spending. So my personal read on it, and certainly some of the read on some of the feedback I've got within the last week, is that maybe we need to spend less and spend it more focused. Okay.
Fair enough. What your definition of cool is not supportive. Just trying to, so when you see you're cool to something, I just want to make sure what you mean. Is it not supportive of?
I am not supportive to extravagant spending in any way, shape, or form.
Fair enough. Thank you. I saw some eyebrows and I was like, oh, I better get a clarification on that. Go ahead.
I think almost every time we borrow money, it is for a specific project, that just as a as an aside
So far.
there, but so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that would be the only way that council should approve debt.
Administration.
Yes, through the chair, thank you. Just to sort of address earlier comments there, Joel will be talking a little bit, and it's one of the resolutions that we're hoping for is that we'll bring back and bring back a suggested long-term financial plan. And as part of that, we'll have some of the elements that you were discussing, Councillor Clayton. So hopefully with that, we'll be able to see some of how that long-term plan will roll out. And that could also include some things like maybe planned taxation. So there's residents and council can actually set a foreseeable future that people can plan for sure, as part of that. So we will be bringing that based on council's resolutions today, if you wish us to go there. So.
And as well as it was stated here earlier about linear dropping, we're also getting things downloaded on us. One is police funding model. There was $1 million that we never had to pay 5 years ago. That's in the budget every year. That just keeps chipping away at the bottom line. All of those things that get downloaded to us. Continue on.
Thank you. So a couple things I'll just clarify prior to proceeding is in terms of borrowing bylaws, you're correct that they're required to itemize, like list specifically what is being borrowed for and the purpose of it. And also one of the notes that we had under this table here is just that when we generated these reports and these estimates, it was under the assumption that the municipal price index approach would be acceptable, recognizing that the MPI tax increase component is for increases in costs for operating. And just that with council in 2026 sort of resetting the budget, so to speak, of no longer drawing from reserves to pay for operating items. Going forward, this was just done under the assumption that MPI would be covering off incremental operating cost increases, apart from requests for changing service levels and those kind of things that we might look at for the operating budget itself. But so that's why in this report, you won't see any changes proposed on that, because MPI, we developed that later in the process. We look at metrics and on the operating side. So again, we'll bring that forward as part of this cycle, because we've used MPI for a number of years now and council's seen amenable to it. But just to give you some context on that.
Councillor Hibbs.
Just a comment for staff. So the MPI would be based kind of on what we think a historical norm is. But I would, say that if we went back to inflation of 6%, many counties in Alberta would be adjusting their spending quickly, and we'd have to, right? So I don't know, like the MPI is kind of one of those, we can use it as a guideline, but I'm uncomfortable with the notion that it's just something that we can automatically adopt, as council and staff, and say, well, the MPI is 3.5, so we just got to bump it 3.5, or, I'm just uncomfortable with the MPI as anything more than a guideline.
Certainly, and to the chair to clarify, it would never be a decision made by administration. It would always be a metric brought forward for review based on our statistics and then discussed by council. So to proceed, we left off with taking the 2027, the second year of the 26 capital budget, which after the regular funding that we receive or can anticipate without any changes or additional strategies, leaves around $33 million in net cost. So I won't go into each of these in detail, but just as a refresh, some of these strategies that were visited at the 2026 operating budget time. There was an infrastructure investment fund proposed, and that was an incremental increase for the explicit purpose of putting aside into reserves or to directly fund capital in that year. Another strategy that was taken up during the 2026 budget was this first year of a non-residential tax shift. So what was presented during the budget development period was kind of a 5-year step up of increasing to bring the tax rate for the non-res assessment to be more in line with a couple comparatives. Again, this is whether the second year of the strategy is up to council and or whether any other strategy would be taken. There's a proposition here for investment in business growth. Generally, administration has been relatively conservative with projecting that growth across time. So it's always better to underproject and realize that and have a little bit more. But as we see more industrial growth come on, we're also trying to balance that between not being too conservative and being realistic, and maybe working internally on strategies that we can have a better reliance on increasing those numbers and knowing, say, of kind of the longer 3 to 5 year window and what that might look like. This other strategy, of course, utilizing debt. So at the moment, based on the Alberta government sets a debt limit for each municipality, and it's based on the municipality's prior audited financial statements. So currently, I've been estimating that our debt limit is around $41 million. And the reason why it's an estimate is we're just factoring in some debt that may be incurred in the current year that was approved in the 2026 budget, which will come forward once we have an idea from the STIP grant approvals, and it's just kind of depending on that. So we've done a conservative estimate here of what debt capacity would be remaining for the 2027 year. So it works out to about $40 million. We also provided just a quick summary, high level of how much debt eats up, so to speak, of a equivalent 1% tax increase, just so council can see that context. So that brings us to the existing reserves or unallocated surplus. What we focused on in this report in the tables was just any reserve that is tax funded or unallocated or not designated towards anything. We left out the very specific reserves, and there will be some adjustments to total reserve availability when we really get into the details. For example, there is a specific Muirfield reserve for the Muirfield community, and there will be Muirfield projects, and so those ones would be contributing to those. So in this context, we're just taking the tax-funded reserves that would be available conceptually for kind of any county-wide project.
Go ahead.
So Joel, just, where it says utilizing debt on line 2 there, it says debt could be used to address reserve shortfalls and support critical infrastructure. So the critical infrastructure I get, but is it where it says to address reserve shortfalls, you'd borrow the money, stick it into reserves, and then take the money out of reserves to do the critical? Or is that two different things? That's what I was reading, and that's why my question about, because it's and instead of to, right, in the wording. So I'm just searching for clarification here, please.
Yeah, so through the board, Chair. So sorry for the miscommunication there. To clarify, it's essentially the same concept as we're not taking out debt to fund reserves. It's just if council were to choose to have X number of $1 million of projects and there's not sufficient reserves available to fund those, it's just that they would, if they really wanted to prioritize those projects and decided to use debt to do them, it would just be in place of essentially reserves that don't currently exist. But then those debt funds would go directly to those capital projects.
Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, I turned it off. Yeah, so then a couple other quick things here in terms of options as we go through the budget is reducing services, deferring projects, retiring infrastructure if available. And again, these are all decisions that would be made by council through thorough review or increasing revenues through other strategies. Sorry, I'm just going to go to my page here. So this is just a graphical representation of kind of what we've shown in that initial table. We can see that funding gap of approximately $30 million. Again, this is based on the second year of the current 5-year capital plan. And then we've itemized just for visual representation. Over time, you can see over the next 4 years, based on the current capital ask or cost requirement, which is the black line at the top. And the difference is the funding gap, which is the kind of the candy cane line. And then we've inserted the funding sources of that by each type, the grant funding that's readily available. Here we've also included some of the strategies that Council has seen in the last few months as well, just to give a visual idea of the decrease in that funding gap across that time period. This shows sort of what the financial resources available to fund these projects over the next 4 years, so that 2027 through 2030. And we've identified it like in different color codes here. And the reason for that is the kind of the beige taupe type color just represents actual like balances, sort of bank balances, so to speak, or financial capacity. It's just available one time. So that's why you'll just see it available in the 2027 year, because Council might choose to not use that full, say, $55 million or all the $41 million in debt capacity to just pay for the entire 2027 year budget. There might be decisions made to fund just a portion of that, and then those beige balances would carry forward to the subsequent years in that plan. And so then the green aspects there are some of those, again, those strategies that Council's seen in the past in terms of other potential revenue sources that could pay for those projects. I believe that concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Councillor Habs. Councillor Priest.
So just when we look at the candy cane line and the non-residential shift to higher taxation, and I know when we presented the budget for this year that we were lower than surrounding counties. And I just sitting here thinking, like if you think of like Seven Chiefs Sportsplex, which is in a very low zero taxation area, but you think of what that did, what zero or low taxation did for an industrial complex. Like it's not exactly apples to apples, but the mindset or the concept is the same. They pay very little tax or zero, and what a boon to the area it is. So I just want to make sure we don't get, I want to make sure we keep our non-residential tax rates low enough to continue to attract as much as we can. Thank you.
Deputy Reeve.
So when I looked at this, I went back to our budget that we just passed, and I saw that we have, and this is a little bit different than your report, but we had approved in for the 2027, like we do our capital budget on a 5-year rolling basis. And so for 2027, we had 42 million in projects. We were proposing to use 5 million in debt, 3.4 million in grants, 7 in designated reserves out of the 15 that we have, 0.7 in proceeds of sale, and 25.5 million from unrestricted surplus. And we don't have that at all. We have 5, I think, in our unrestricted surplus. So from my perspective, we have a $40 million or $42 million capital budget that I think needs to be 25 million. I think we're going to have to cut drastically and use all of the other strategies that are outlined here. I think for me, I was thinking that $10 million in debt would be about as far as I would go. I don't want to use all of our designated reserves. So if we have 15 and we're going to use 7, that cuts it in half, which that's a little bit stressful. And if we only have 5 in unrestricted, we build that a little bit. Maybe we have a couple million that'll go back into it, but I don't want to see that go to 0 either. So honestly, we're in a dire position now. We have gone from having lots of surplus to very little, and our capital plan is, our asset management plan says we need to spend a bunch of money. We're not going to be able to. I think we got to take money out of our bridge file, maybe do half the number of bridges that we are proposing. I think we need to take it out of our fleet. I think we got to extend the amount of time that we keep equipment. I think we got to put a pause on some road maintenance. I know, you know, there are roads that need it desperately, but how can we do it? We don't have the money. Maybe our master plan for the yard here needs to be delayed, or maybe we, instead of hiring a consultant to do it, we need to hire one person, one salary compared to a $1.5 million or $2 million, whatever it is, consulting fee. We are going to have to look at every single thing and decide what we can do without, because we cannot afford a $40 million budget, capital budget. So those are my thoughts.
Blunt and good. I'm okay with that. I look at on page 130, the graph and showing the funding gap, and the realistic of expecting taxation to make that up isn't going to happen. And how do we stretch that out over, that's a very small graph area. And when you stretch out a graph further out, and I realize our asset management program has identified a lot of stuff, but it's going to have to be adjusted. We realistically cannot complete what's on an asset management plan unless it's critical, period, in my opinion. That's, you know, and what defines critical? That's, you guys are going to tell us that, right? Because we don't do that. We have our opinions about where things should be, but staff ultimately see where it goes. Costs are going up, funding's going down. This is exactly what happens. When we looked at not increasing taxes years ago, it didn't look this dire, but our costs have gone up substantially, and that's everywhere. I mean, we look at all the boards that we're on and the costs that are there, and where does it come from? There's only one taxpayer. So I agree with everything you're saying. And how do we do that? That's so staff obviously feels the same way. They're looking for direction from us. We're going to give that direction, I think. So everybody, please chime in. This is your chance to set direction as way forward. And if we have to change things, we have to change things, and that's okay. That's what our job is. Anyone else? Go ahead. Now's the time to.
That's the discussion I'd like to see. That's exactly what gives our staff a chance to look at it ahead of October, November, and this is perfect. Thank you.
For me, looking at resolution 1 and 4 are okay to be able to set direction. 2 and 3, I think, is going to have to come back with some data behind it to set a budget cap. I don't know. I think I could propose a budget cap of 25 million. Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
And 10 million or well, from reserves, resolution number 3. So you're wondering about reserves. Is that our designated reserve fund? Is that what we're asking about?
So through the chair, it's more of an overall picture, because at this point we're not looking at individual projects and how they're sourced. So we're just looking for guidance for just generally how much would be desired to be pulled from reserves.
Well, I guess I was thinking so from designated reserves, we should maybe ask for 6 million, and from unrestricted 4 million kind of thing. So that does that help? Yeah. These are just my thoughts.
For sure.
Throwing them out there.
Go ahead.
And I think 10 million for debt would be even that, it scares me. Yeah.
Through the chair, just a little help for council too. Resolution 2 and 3 are more like guidelines for us. It doesn't mean that that's where we end up in the end. It just helps us to be able to prioritize, okay, we're going to try and stay in these constraints with the most important, but we'll still bring all of the projects forward.
That's exactly what I would expect, that, you know, you're not going to say, oh, well, council said we're not spending more than this much. You're going to come with some recommendations, and we're going to have to make that hard decision in the end.
I really like this process because it sets, like, I like that we're given direction this way on a cap, because it's easy to get into projects and just, well, I want to see this done. I just see this done. And then all of a sudden the budget comes, you're like, where it's too late. This way we're setting direction at the top. Here's the ceiling. where we're at. We're going to work within that. I really like that idea. I wish we would have done this several times beforehand. Would have helped a lot. But we're here now, so we're going to do this. Go ahead.
I was understanding these are more targets, not set in stone. I can understand a target, but I don't think today I want to start cutting things or putting limits on our reserves. I can understand the target, and we come back in October, whenever the next presentation is. We'll see what it is, and then in the same sense, we'll have slides showing us exactly what our reserves are. Like, I can't make a decision today without seeing those numbers and our previous budget. I'm going off from my memory, and it gets clouded sometimes.
Any further discussion? Not seeing any. So administration is looking for some, what? Oh,
No, if we're ready for resolutions, I'm.
for sure. Yeah. We can still discuss after the motions on the floor, so. Go ahead if you want.
I'd like to make resolution number 2.
Okay.
The council establish a preliminary 2027 capital budget cap of $25 million and direct administration to use this parameter in developing the 2027 budget for council's review.
Go ahead.
So I would like to know what difference that is in comparison to what we have. What was our projection to use in the budget?
To the chair, so I believe what you're referring to is just the total capital cost that was already proposed. If
Motion was to limit it to 25 million. What was it? Is it a cut? What is the cut?
It started at 40 million.
Hmm?
It was 40 million,
I
It's a
think
huge
For
cut.
me, it's too.
but we can't afford it.
And
we're n-
premature.
Sorry, through the chair. So just for some clarity, the idea of using the second year plan, of the 2026 5-year budget, the $40 million, it is comprehensive. It has all the projects in there as identified. This resolution is mainly to provide administration context. So even as we go and develop that plan, the projects being brought forward in October may still equate to a total that differs than the $25 million. It just provides some more concrete context to administration, an idea of perhaps what council is targeting and prioritization. So council will always make the decisions on the projects and priorities.
Thank you. Councillor Clayton. Oh, and then administration.
Is it helpful, this is a question to administration, is it helpful to put limits on you right now other than giving you a direction and thought? And you come back with what you see is the final budget, not the final budget, but the proposed budget later on. I can see us giving you direction. I'm just not sure an actual number is in my head. Something I would strive to. If it's less than that, I'd be even more happy. That's all.
Go ahead.
Yes, through the chair, those are great questions. So that's why we have, so resolution 2 will help us with a long-term financial plan, and that's looking forward. As we're looking at potentially giving us a constraint, if it's 25 million or even less, administration's got to do the hard work pretty much of figuring out which ones they feel that they have to push out much further, because, if we're going to defer projects, it's probably going to have to be pushed out a lot further than we've typically done. And so giving us that for our 2027 budgets helps set us on the right, railway, if you will. And then the long-term budget will help that'll help us with that long-term direction and how all of those assets get spread out over the long term to be financially stable.
Go ahead.
I can't support this. Pushing projects out usually ends up costing more money than doing them properly. This is in part a result of previous councils that decided to spend reserve money to avoid increasing taxes. You're getting you're reaping what you pay. So I think that's way too low.
Thank you. Motion's on the floor. Any further discussion on the motion? Well then, I will call the question. The council established a preliminary 2027 capital budget cap at 25 million and direct administration to use this parameter in developing the 2027 budget for council's review.
I would just say that, you know, staff has mentioned that they can then, it gives them some clear direction. Like, you know, I think they're reasonably comfortable with the number, at least gives them. So if it's 24.5, great. If it's 25.5, none of us 7 are jumping off one of the bridges we didn't fix.
Yeah, this whole exercise honestly is administration sees a problem coming ahead. They're looking for us for input as to, I think they realize it's unrealistic what's on proposed. They're seeking direction. We're giving direction. They'll come back with the implications of how that rolls out. Ultimately, it's council's decision, even then, to change it. We're not set on budget yet. Go ahead.
I think we have to realize too, pushing out projects further. A lot of those projects have already been pushed out 20, 30 years. They're going to enter into the retiring stage. They'll be falling down. I think I'd like to push it the other way, go for the other limit and see if we can achieve it. I think cutting it too low, oh yeah, we made it. No, stress ourselves and see what we can do.
I really wish this discussion happened before I called the question, because the question is called and is being voted on as we speak. So.
Well, once you've called the question, it's to vote, yeah.
Yeah, once we call the question is to.
I already voted, yeah.
Yeah, I already voted too, so.
But I do want to mention that the critical ones are going to come back. Like, I can't, like, we still have a say in what is been knocked down the road 15 years and what hasn't been. Like, I think we still have control. It's just staff has a better idea of what this council is going for. It's like, but what our strategy is or what our thoughts are.
And actually, that's all in the asset management program. Everything that gets pushed around or pushed X, Y, Z has a list, a priority list, the values and all that stuff.
And administration can come with a $30 million budget. I mean, we still get to choose. This is just giving them an idea of what,
absolutely,
how we're feeling, and I'm feeling strong.
Councillor Cole.
That's one of the reasons why I didn't like to see an actual number. Is I wanted our staff to hear what we are saying. And that's really the kind of direction that they need to hear. I think getting an actual number to me is not what they need to deal with. I apologize if I said it wrong, but
I'll respectfully disagree on that because they have asked in a motion coming from administration with a number, with a blank line. They've asked us for this. They are listening to the whole conversations about the cuts, and whatever happens, they'll come back with. But ultimately, like Deputy Reeves said, this will come back to council several times, I see now, and we will be looking and adjusting as we go along. Yeah, so if you haven't voted, please vote. Well, it still says vote in progress, so. Councillor Clayton, apparently you have to vote.
pushed it twice.
Oh. That is carried. Closely carried. Thank you. There's three other possible motions. We can do a break if we want. We have a request for a break at 10:35. Let's come back at 10:45. That's fine. We got lots of time today. And we're back on the preliminary budget discussions for 2027. We've had one motion made so far. I just want to make one comment about development coming forward. Development is great, but it takes a long time to get that into the system and assessments and things like that. It's good for long-term planning because once they're established, if you had to borrow against that proposed income, you have it there. But right now, we don't know anything that's comes up so far. Other than the one we just did a ribbon cutting, it probably won't have actual tax revenue for another year yet, correct? And then some of there's a tax incentive program that was there that some councilors need to be aware of that trigger some of that out till 3 years, just things like that. So cause and effect always. So resuming discussion, we had one motion on the floor. We have possible 3 others. Council's wishes. Councillor Larson, sorry.
I'll move that council direct administration to review existing infrastructure and identify assets that may be candidates for retirement or decommissioning, and to bring a report forward as part of the October 2026 budget preparation discussions.
Thank you for the motion. Any discussion? For me, I support this because it's always good to review everything, especially in lieu of what we're looking at in the future here. So, any other discussion? I'll call the question. That's carried. Go ahead. Sorry.
I'll just put this out there that council established preliminary 2027 funding parameters of up to, I'm gonna say $6 million in designated reserves, $4 million in unrestricted surplus, and up to $10 million through debt financing for the development of the 2027 budget.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any discussion?
I understand where Deputy Laprise is coming from, but the 10 million debt financing, I'm uncomfortable with at this time. So I'm just like, I understand and actually totally support that. I think we're in a little more dire financial spot than we realize. And I've been feeling that way since the day I was elected, quite frankly. But I'm having a little trouble supporting the 10 million debt.
Again, this is a guideline. They're not going to go out and get a line of credit tomorrow. It'll come back to us with the implications as to taxes, because there's I think it's 0.25 per million just in borrowing is basically the tax increase. So you're looking at 3% roughly. Go ahead.
Through the chair, I just wanted to point council's attention to the numbers that were previous. So based on assumptions, each $1 million of debt would require approximately a 0.25% property tax increase to support the debt servicing costs. I just wanted to remind council about that as you're contemplating.
I totally hear what you're saying. I'm also somewhat uncomfortable with 10 million. I hope it would be less, but I don't see how we can accomplish anything without some debt. And I know 5 million would be better than 10. 0, of course, would be the best. But we do have some projects that need to be done, and we don't have money in the bank. We got to borrow. So, anyways, as a guideline, I'll stand with that.
Councillor Hebbs, then.
So to staff. So if we borrowed 10 million at 0.25, it would be a 2.5% tax increase just to cover that 10 million worth of debt. Thank you.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct. About that, approximately.
Councillor Kester.
The projects, the way I remember them, are loaded on the front end. And as the years go by, it gets less. the spending. It was 40 million, then it was down to 28 million. Or I can go for borrowing, and if we keep pushing them down the line, costs increase. Just the cost of doing it increases. So that's prudent borrowing of money if you can use it to offset future costs. So if we, yeah, that's all I need.
Fair enough. Any further discussion before I call a question? Seeing and hearing none, I will call the question. We all do it. And that's carried. I can make the final motion.
Can I have a comment before that final motion?
Sure.
I noticed that, like, so I always find that November, I just find it so busy with RMA and like there's other conferences starting up too that maybe just pertain to me, but I'm just wondering if we could do it like even the end of October, bring it up. Maybe that's too soon. Maybe there's some things I don't know that you're trying to wait for, but it says here by November. And I just think it maybe a little bit earlier. The earlier the better would be. Because then all of a sudden it's RMA, and then all of a sudden we're into Christmas and things happen and it gets kind of left behind. Just a thought.
So I think on page 126, they've got and in October, they will present detailed interim budget. And then give us October, November.
Works. I'll make the motion that council direct administration to prepare and present by November 2026 options for a long-term financial plan over a 10 to 20-year horizon, including proposed financial sustainability strategies for council's consideration. Any discussion on the motion? I will call the question. That's carried. Thank you. Now the next are asking for funding requests. This should go. It's very interesting. 7.2.
Morning, Council. Joel again from administration. I know you love hearing my soothing accounting voice. So this will be the last time for today. This next one is in-kind contribution request from the Lyalta Community Club and Lake Summerfield HOA. So some context for this. Again, it's back to our recently approved new in-kind donation policy. Because the value here surpasses $3,000, it requires council's approval before proceeding. Some of the detail context provided here was that the project was approved by council already, or contributions of in-kind services to this specific project. And as a result of a recent development permit and some more concrete engineering information and estimates, this is a kind of a follow-up just with some additional material requested for completing the project. I believe it's specifically for the parking lot. So this specific ask additionally is around $14,000. And you can see in the table there a list of identified equipment. That concludes my presentation. Available for any questions.
Thank you. I'll just note that this is not only funds from the county going in here. The HOA is putting a substantial amount of funding in this to do this project as well. So they had asked for an in-kind at the start, and this is just additional. And I believe they are still buying gravel as well on top of this. So council's wishes, go ahead.
I move that council approve the Lyell Community Club and Lakes of Merrifield Homeowner Association in-kind contribution application in an estimated amount of $13,922 for gravel and green space enhancements.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any discussion? Go ahead.
I just have a question. So it's the Lyalta Community Club. This is the hall, right? What does the homeowners association have to do with the hall?
I can answer that. Homeowners Association in Lakes of Merrifield has bought every single person out of their homeowners association fee a membership in the Lyalta Community Hall, which has got increased the revenue of operation for that facility tremendously. Because and then they always they pay for their membership as well. So then there's people that are transferring over. These projects are jointly between the community hall and the HOA, as HOA is a funder as well, a capital funder.
So they're just donating to this. They're not actually on the Community Hall Association as a member.
There's a mixture of HOA people and the hall
But
board.
they're people, not the association.
No, not actual members, like designated members saying, but they're just people that kind of.
Yeah, because the cars, like, so a Lions Club wouldn't become a member of an ag society.
No.
Yeah, okay, so
They're just there as person, not as a representative of the association. Does that make
so
sense?
it just should be a Lyalta Community Club.
Fair enough.
Any comment?
Go ahead.
I was kind of thinking that maybe we should fund half of this, or I was thinking that we should fund, because gravel is it's in our communities, I guess, and we run it. But I was thinking the seeding, surely they could find somebody that could seed some grass for them. We've committed a lot of money over the time, and look at the curb money they've gotten, $390,000 out of that. We've already donated 72,000 plus other gravel in 2024. Like, honestly, it's starting to pile up in my mind. So I was thinking that maybe we wanted to give them, so if you just look at the gravel, trucking and riprap, it would be $43.94 in funding. It's just a suggestion, but I do, yeah. I hope that they are able to do casinos and raise money other ways as well. Lots of community halls do, and I think they need to look at other ways of raising money for these projects. I don't mind helping, but I feel like we've invested a lot of money already.
I can state the community hall can do casinos. The HOA cannot because they're for profit or, yeah. Go ahead, Councillor Habs.
I had some of the same thoughts as Deputy Reeve Laprise, in that the county has certainly been supportive of them. My thoughts would be, they'll be back again next year. And I would note that I believe there was also 197,000 from our MLA as well. So the Lyalta Community Club has received, a lot of government money in the last little while. Thanks.
Councillor Clayton.
I'd be willing to amend my motion to cover the gravel and the hauling of the gravel. And yeah.
So is everybody clear? So it's amended to the motion to just do the gravel and the hauling?
So you could say up to 4,394. That's what it adds up to.
Up to 4,394.
94.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good discussion. Any further discussion? Call the question. Go ahead.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah.
The old
Yes.
was on there and I'm going.
Yeah, I saw her typing. Perfect. So the amended motion, or sorry, the changed motion friendly amendment is on before us. I'll call the question. Democracy in action. Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to 7.3, Hazar Centennial Projects Proposal.
Good morning, Council. Dave from Administration. On page 138 of your agenda package is the Hazar Centennial Project Proposal Survey Distribution Request. This report is intended to support Council's decision on whether the county should assist with the distribution of the Village of Hazar survey to county residents. It does not recommend county funding or endorsement of the project at this time. The survey information would be helpful to determine if the county should consider future investments in the splash park or in-kind requests. The report provides answers to Council's questions from the May 19th meeting, an additional comparison data that was requested from other communities, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Larson.
I'll move the council on Village of Hazar by distributing its Centennial Projects Community Survey to Wheatland County residents, and that results be reported back to council for information.
Thank you. Councillor Kester and then Deputy Reeve Laprise.
Would that be all county residents or Division 7 county residents or circumference of Hazar County residents? I'm just curious.
We were thinking just the circumference around Hazar.
Question just about the survey then. The survey will give an indication of the costs so that people know. Yes.
Yes, we would include the costs of the capital project and then anticipated operating costs and expenses.
Thank you.
And on the survey, because it will be coming from, Wheatland County letterhead, it will also say that it does not recommend county funding or endorsement of the proposed project at this time. Will that be in the survey?
Yes, it would be part of the introduction. This is just like, as the report says, for fact finding to determine if council would like to support the project.
Go ahead.
I think it would be appropriate that we're doing this at the request of the Village of Hazar. They asked us to do the survey, and that's, for me, the only reason that we're doing it.
Through the chair, we could definitely have that included in the preamble on the survey.
Motion on the floor. I want to talk about the elephant in the room here, I guess, is I understand the village wants to do this, but in actual, for them to be able to afford to do it, we just went through our own budget thing. There's no way they have the money to do this. So this, by us doing a survey, is not implicating us, but showing that we want to maybe support it. And ultimately, is that what you want to do? And I realize that the village is asking us to do this, but the discussions we had earlier, I don't see it happening. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd be okay with the survey, but I would say that this is what the Village of Standard Hazar is proposing. And as a taxpayer of the County of Wheatland, we've been asked to participate in, because they are all taxpayers. We're all, like, everybody in the county will be paying for it. So it should go to everyone, not just everybody around Hazar. So I'm thinking that we need input from all of the county if they're looking for funds from the tax base.
Any further discussion? Call the question. This would have been different if it was at the start of the meeting instead of after the budget discussions. That is lost. Anything further on this? Okay. Move on to 7.4. Range Road 255 rail crossing updates and budget approval. Prediction? We'll see. Go ahead.
Good morning, Council. Brad Bullock presenting a report about Range Road 255 rail crossing update and potential budget approval. So this investigation was initiated by local residents who were concerned about the safety of the rail crossing located at Range Road 255, just south of Township 222 near Carsland. So we went ahead and initiated the study through our engineering consultant. So just to summarize what they found in terms of the vehicles and the train traffic is they found about an average of 17 train movements per day and then about 100 to 150 vehicles per day crossing. And so what the standard does for that is they call it a cross product. So it's just a multiplication of those two numbers. And then they take the speed of the train, and there's some charts that they look at. And where that landed is that this crossing would, by that standard, be recommended for active controls. In this case, it'd be active controls. The minimum would be active controls without gates. Further, the crossing angle of this location is quite acute. It's actually a little bit less than 30 degrees. That angle is actually less than what would be permitted under today's standards for rail crossings and road crossings. The minimum is 30 degrees, so it's pretty close. But there's just something to keep in mind. Under the current standards, and I think it was post 2014 is when those came. So this, just to be clear, this intersection doesn't apply, would be grandfathered in because it was built prior to those standards. But it would be required to be built to a minimum of 30. And any rail crossings between an angle of 30 and 70 do require active controls. If they were built today. So based on those numbers, administration is recommending that the county consider putting in controls at this to increase the safety. And we are actually recommending to put in the gated controls as well. The reason being is it does qualify for the active controls without gates. However, the angle of the road and the railway is steep, acute, and so having those gates. In addition, the cost difference between having the active controls without gates and the active controls with gates is fairly marginal. And so all those things considered, we would recommend if council does proceed with this, that we go ahead with installing the gates as well for the marginal cost difference. So on page 145, at the top, you can see the picture essentially of what those look like. And then further down is the cost associated with. So warning system with no gates. And these are cost estimates that the CPKC has provided the county. They would be the ones that would install these gates, and then the county pays them for that. So the cost is $668,504 with no gates, $735,984 with gates. And then the operational cost, annual operational cost, also at the bottom of the page, is about $9,000 a year with no gates, and then $9,700 with gates. There is some potential for senior government grant funding. The Transport Canada's Rail Safety Improvement Program does release grant funding programs from time to time. Our understanding is right now there isn't one active, but I think there's one coming this year with some approved budget that could get applied for. My understanding that it is a heavily applied for grant program. And so when it does get released, we'll want to be watching for that. Again, if council approves this, to get that application in quickly. And it will grant up to 80% of the costs or up to a maximum of $500,000. So in our case, the $500,000 would be the one that would max that out. So we don't know for sure, again, if that's coming. I think it is, it just hasn't been announced exactly when that will happen. If it does happen in 2026 and council approves this, we would certainly apply for that grant. I think that concludes the gist of the presentation, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Bigger.
I have a comment. I honestly thought, why would CP Rail not have any obligation to help finance that? I'm shocked.
It's a good question. Through the chair, there is a map of seniority between roads and rails that is maintained. And I'm not sure the exact details of it, but I believe it has to do with what was there first, the road or the rail. In this particular location, it's the rail that was there first. And so because the road came after, then the costs get assigned to the municipality rather than the rail.
Councilor Hibbs.
I have two thoughts. I think we should just table it till the grant becomes available, because that's $500,000 potentially different, right? Or why don't we just wait and make sure that grant's available? The other thing is, if the crossing, as I recall it, is quite elevated where the gravel road comes up and goes over that. So there's actually quite a speed barrier there already. And having worked in that area for decades, I don't remember any accidents. So that's just going from memory. But yeah, I just don't know that if there'd been 2 or 3 fatalities or even some near misses, generally when there's a train vehicle incident, it's somebody trying to beat the train, right? So just my thoughts.
I don't know if it was a fatality, but there has been quite a few accidents there, actually. The county may have record of one of them, because I know that they all had to be called in, and so was STARS. So I don't know what happened, but it is very dangerous for sure. And it was actually someone who didn't live there. So it's just unknown. That road is getting busier and busier. It's not the debate of whether it's needed. My debate was, or my thought was, why would we have to bear the whole cost? Which I didn't realize, actually. But another one is, you're thinking of the other crossing. This one is the crossing going straight north and south, and it's actually the level. It's not elevated at all. You're thinking of the other one that goes east and west, and it's elevated. And now we've, it was busy before. It was a very busy road, but they MRO'd it, and I just think they're going a little faster, and it is worrisome. I know we just went through that budget, and I get it, but I feel that now that it's been brought to everybody's attention, Benda County, I would hate for someone, while we're waiting for a $200 or whatever $300 grant, that someone else gets hurt. Thank you.
And just a comment, if I may, through the chair. In terms of the grant, this is similar to some other grants where, in order to apply for the grant, you actually have to provide them with evidence that council has approved the project and is willing to go ahead with the spending of the project as part of your application, is my understanding for this grant. There's been some other grants that we've applied to recently that are the same way. So there's just something to consider, that they want that assurance. I believe it's probably because they're trying to avoid that very thing of people kind of fishing for grants before they decide, and then they might get awarded the grant and then decide later not to go ahead with the project. I think they're trying to avoid that type of situation. So they want some assurance that the municipality is in fact planning to go ahead with the project before as part of the grant application.
Councilor Kester and then Deputy Reeve Laprise.
Question and comment. Question is, If we put up the barriers, how far apart are the poles?
I'm not sure in this particular case, because it is such an acute angle with the rail and the road, they might be quite far back from the rail in order to manage that. But actually in this case, maybe a little closer to, I'm just going to say I don't know.
The reason why I ask, it's farming community and moving machinery across. Hook onto it with a cultivator shank or something. And my comment is, I wouldn't want to become known as a county that counts up traffic accidents before we do anything. I think that shouldn't even be in the question. Thank you.
Deputy LaPriest.
My question was just, currently there's no lights or anything at this crossing. It's a completely, oh, there's. Hmm.
Through signage only, I'd have to.
Signage only? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think.
Councillor Clayton.
Yeah, this is over by where we've got property as well, and it has been, as you say, not paved, but that MRU or whatever it is called. It's flat, level, and at a heck of an angle. And I would propose that safety-wise, since it's been brought to our attention, we should look after it.
So I'll ask a question. There is no traffic controls there now, as in a stop sign, and would that be sufficient if we put a stop sign up? With a line kind of thing? It's everywhere else. I've seen it lots.
Yeah, actually, I'm not 100% sure if there's even a stop sign there. Because typically with the rails, with the rail crossing signs, people are needing to stop either way. With the recommendation and the standards this is compared against, it is a controlled intersection in terms of active controls. So what that looks like on page 145 would be similar to this picture on screen, but without the gates. It's essentially the same thing that we've seen with the lights. So per the study that's done and the standard that was compared against, that would be the minimum requirement, or I should say recommendation for this intersection. As far as putting in a stop sign, I'd have to talk to, I think we'd have to talk to CPKC. It's a potential, and I have seen those before that maybe could help. However, this is what it pushes us to as a recommendation based on that investigation.
I'd like to find out what information on the stop signs. I can think of a municipality where there's a uncontrolled crossing and they have a stop sign in there. And if you blow the stop sign, you're also breaking the Highway Traffic Act. So there is that as well. So it puts the onus on the drivers. So I know, but it's going to force them to stop, look, listen, and I understand what you're saying, but I've also Highway 72 in Beisker last week got hit, got hit by a train. Clear as day. People just don't pay attention. Like, I mean, are we going to spend $1 million, $750,000 on something that's where we're at? If we had a grant, I'd be okay with it. But as of right now, if we can get away with the stop sign and that's sufficient, that's where I'm going. But, you know, if we had.
I'm thinking there must be a stop sign.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've been there once. But we could table this to get some more information back. Unless it's, you feel it's critical. I don't see a motion on the floor, so.
Been horrid for a long,
Use your
long
mic.
It's been horrible for a long, long time, and people, it is very, very hard to see. Showing it now.
No stop sign.
Stop sign. Oh yeah, no, isn't there a sign there? I see a post.
It's a square sign. The other side. Stop signs are cheap to put up.
But you can see the angle, how it is crazy dangerous.
But if they put a stop sign with the setback on it where they're supposed to stop, they're gonna have a good time to look. It's gonna cover us for liability. That's just where I'm thinking.
Well, I'm thinking that it's been there for so long. I'm just going to, it just, people have been on that road. They're not going to stop. Or they've been going through it and just luckily have not got hit. But there has been accidents too, so I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna get any more information, or do we try it with a stop sign and someone else gets hurt and then well, I guess we'll better put the lights up. I don't know. I'm willing to make the motion and we'll see where it goes. I'll move that council approve the installation of the active crossing warning system with gate, I don't know if we need gates. With gates at the Range Road 255 rail crossing in Carsland, and further that council approve amending the 2026 capital budget by adding 883180 to the project funded from the Transportation Paved Roadways Reserve. I'm willing to do an amendment on the gates.
Any motion on the floor? Discussion?
To be honest, I don't think the difference between gates and no gates is pretty minimal, actually. And like administration says, if we're gonna have the expense, we might as well do it once rather than go back and the difference in cost is what, $100,000.
I guess my thought with the gates was that when the post is like this, when you put the gate in, because it's such an angle, you have to move the lights too, because they're attached. So I'm thinking that the light isn't going to be as, where you can just put the post without the gate facing the actual traffic.
Through the chair, I think what they would probably do is just set the light and the gate back a little bit so it doesn't, yeah, so you get
I guess that
enough clearance. Yeah.
Councillor Larson.
I'm not going to support this. I think if we can, I'm not saying I'm against it, but if a stop sign will do the same thing for probably $860,000 less, if people don't want to stop at a stop sign, that is truly not my problem. They're breaking the law.
Councillor Clayton.
It's a lot of money, there's no question. Stop signs at night get totally missed because you can't see the damn things until you're there. And if you're going to put a stop sign, I think you'd have to put a light on the stop sign to make it a little more safe. It just, at minimum, if you're going to go that way, it'd have to be a light, flashing light on the stop sign to make it more safe in my view. Thanks.
Good discussion. My question is on the operational cost per year. Is that just a flat bill we get sent, or do they just, if they didn't do the thing 1 year, we don't get a bill?
My understanding is it's an ongoing operational cost that we get invoiced.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm just thinking we could put somebody out there for about 10 years as an employee for that cost with a stop sign. Go ahead.
I like Councillor Clayton's idea of a stop sign with a light flashing. That's not a bad idea, because then it is attention getting, and they have one at the top of Clooney Hill, and honestly, you do see it as you're coming up. It's yeah, I like that idea.
Motions on the floor. Any further discussion? I'll call it. Gates are in the motion as is, as presented. That's what you want? Okay, perfect. I'll call the question. It's lost. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion that administration investigate the possibility of installing a stop sign with a flashing red light at that intersection and bring that back to us for evaluation.
Thank you. Motion on the floor, furthering discussion from the lost motion, so great to have it other direction. Any other discussion? Call the question. After the fingers type it out. So the motion was written up that administration investigate the possibility of installing a stop sign with flashing light and bring the report back to council. Stop signs, probably, both sides. And we could have, I'd like to see with and without the light, the cost comparison. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Saw a power pole there, so that's why.
That all depends how much Fortis wants to. Yeah. Good. Perfect. Everybody's clear? Any further discussion? Call the question, which I already did. It's carried. Concluded the portion. We do have an in-camera portion. Oh, yes. 7.5. Who's presenting on that?
Good morning, Council. Brad Bullock presenting. This is a report that came about through a ratepayer that had some concern and wanted to present a letter to Council. We have put the report together and the letters attached and given that to Council for consideration. The only question is, speaking with Sherry Bears, is whether Council wants to have maybe a 10-minute break to read through the information, because I know most of you probably haven't had a chance to do that before we.
I was just going to ask that if we wanted to look at this after the in-camera or get 10, 15 minutes to read through and read through. So do we take a scheduled break, come back at 12:45? Everybody have a chance to read, and if there's anything, we'll follow up with it. So we'll break till 12:45. Thank you. Thank you. We'll resume council meeting. We just had council asked for some time to review a document that was walked in this morning. I'll have administration present, and I'll ask that you kind of go on a timeline of this whole project from, because it's not just this one area, it's been around a reservoir. This is a problem that we assumed because we took the development over from a developer that walked away and handed it to us. There's been a number of areas where there's been some assumptions made by people from the past that had some kind of say in the development and to what actually has happened. There's been a lot of hearsay and a lot of undocumented things. But go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, just a little bit of background, I suppose. The reason that administration is looking to relocate the fence is part of the general, I guess, cleanup that we're doing around the community. When the county received or took ownership of the community, there were some various green spaces and fences and some grading work that needed to get that happen to get it up to the design drawings, in conformance with the design drawings. And we're still working on some of that through the community. This is one of the ones we've been looking at and working on for the last couple of years. One of the concerns that came up when we reviewed the fence line, one is it wasn't located on the property line. There's about 25 to 30 feet between the edge of the ponds and the actual property line. The fence was located about halfway through there. So with discussions with our public works team, we looked at it to see if there would be adequate space there if the fence was left alone, in order to do the required, like if we had to run into major pond maintenance in the future. There is right now, say, pickup truck access around the pond, but if we had to get in there with some decent size equipment to fix up the riprap or anything like that, they said that they likely just wouldn't have room for that type of work. In addition, we were observing that there was a number of lots going in. So on the east and the south side, a lot of those lots have been sold and are now getting developed. On the north side, a lot of those lots were already developed, and we were starting to notice that people were starting to place structures and landscaping and such in between the property line and the fence. And so while we're not needing to do the major maintenance now, we were concerned that if we waited on this until the future, it would just be a bigger problem as people develop their yards and put items on the county property side. So we decided, we figured it was best to go ahead with this now. In 2024, we sent a notification out to residents on the south side and the east side of the reservoir, just letting them know we were moving the fence. At that time, there weren't a lot of homes on those lots, and so it was just more of an FYI, we're going to move the fence next year. In 2025, in January, we sent a notification out to the residents on the north side of the pond, letting them know that we plan to relocate the fence in July, and asked them if they could move anything that they needed moved or wanted moved prior to June 15th, so yesterday. So that's kind of the background that administration has. Right now, we are prepping the site, and so the intention was, in order to have to get people to move sheds and whatever else that might be in that area before we move in, because we need to do some preparation work, we need to do some grading work, obviously the existing fence removal, things like that, in preparation for the installation of the new fence in July. And so hence we asked people if they could move it off a little bit early, so to give us the space to do that preparatory work. There is still some existing trees. There was some sheds in there that some people have moved off, but there are some trees existing. So this particular ratepayer did call administration requesting whether there would be compensation for the trees in the right of way. I did inform the individual that it's not something that I can authorize because it's not something the county is obligated to do. These trees are located on county property. But I did give them the option, if they wanted, they could submit a letter to council with that request, and council could direct administration to do that. And if so, then of course we would follow council direction on that. So I think that summarizes for my part, but if there's any questions that council has, I'm here to answer them, at least for council. Council does have the letter before them as well, with the pricing and stuff. So
Thank you. Any questions? I just had one, just thinking about here, because I'm in the water industry and I've been around a lot of reservoirs. This only has a 4-foot fence around it. I think Alberta Environment, because it is drinking water supply, there is a setback required. I don't think we can actually negotiate that setback at all. I think there's a requirement in there, and because it's, like I said, a lot of reservoirs, they have a 6-foot fence because it's to keep people from chucking stuff in there that they shouldn't. So I don't even know. We might have to double check that the fence is high enough. Something it kind of cued in my brain. I'm thinking and I think the reservoirs at WRC and things like that, they're all like a 6-foot chain link fence around it. And there's a reason why. So have we looked into that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that particular piece of information. I was, I'm a little bit hazy on this, but I thought we did put a 6-foot fence in around this, but I'd have to double check on that now that you asked.
I just want to make sure it's adequate. I'm pretty sure the setbacks, there's no negotiation on the setbacks because of it's set by the province of Alberta for drinking water quality. That's just me. I just want to make sure that we're doing it as per the regulations. Go ahead.
I think good fences make good neighbors, obviously, so we have to move the fence to where the legal property line is. We had an issue a few years ago, and it wasn't really even an issue, where there was 2 pieces of farm ground that 2 different guys owned, and the one guy's bin just happened to be 4 or 5 feet across the property line, and the 2 guys talked about it, and guy just towed his bin across and back to his side. So this gentleman didn't have the county fence as a guideline back in the day. It's still incumbent upon him to put anything permanent somewhere where it's he knows for sure it's inside his property line, maybe even, put it a foot closer than where he thinks it needs to be. So it doesn't feel like it's county responsibility, in my opinion.
Through the chair to council, just for clarification, only because Mr. Couts had sent the request through me. I just want to clarify that he knows that he put the trees off his property. And from what I can gather, it was done prior, even though he owned it, but prior to his construction of his home. And this is where it was all verbal that you see in the other correspondence, is that they claim they had a deal with the previous developer, but we have no record of that when we transferred all the land titles and all of the instruments that we came when we took over the development. And we have been going through the whole development, working to rectify all of the things that have been constructed improperly in that development.
And that issue wasn't addressed or brought up during the transfer of ownership by anybody? No. Go ahead.
I did get a helpful text from one of our public works staff. It is a 6-foot fence that's being installed, so.
Perfect, thank you.
I recognize that, in my opinion, we don't have an obligation to compensate him for his trees, regardless of whether there was a verbal arrangement with the previous developer. I'm not sure that would hold up in court. But looking at the $3,500 estimate to move some trees, I wonder if the landowner would be amenable to sharing that cost. And we're a good neighbor and he's a good neighbor and we're resolving this together. Do you have any indication of whether he would share the cost?
Through the chair, I would imagine his preference would be full compensation per his request. However, I think whatever council decides in this room is what the county will do. And so.
There's several other people that are there as well along that thing, so that have moved equipment and things. So to pick out one and try to help, it would be, mind you, there is a letter. There could be more letters coming. Just to keep that in mind. Councillor Hebs, and then
So to staff,
Councillor Custer.
he indicated that when he planted the trees, he knew that that it wasn't on his land.
Through the chair, I can probably just speak to, I think, what's in the letter. There is an acknowledgement that that location is county-owned land, and I believe there's an acknowledgement. They're not disputing the fact that it's county-owned land. So I can't speak on his behalf of whether he knew when the trees went in at the time. So
I've been to the site. There's a drainage swale there that is pretty much the property line. So, and when you have a title, when you get title to something, they were new builds, they were surveyed. So go ahead.
We haven't had a request for quite a few years, but there was a time we had lots of landowners out in the county and we were building roads and we were taking down trees. And I believe, I can't remember one getting compensated at all. And it got down that if you planted a tree within the setbacks, you had to have council permission. And if you got council permission, then council would move them. But outside of that, no. And we've decreased setbacks too. It used to be 150 feet. Now it's 75-ish, I think. But yeah, never, ever. Because once you try and do that and try and be fair to everybody else, you've just opened up a huge can of worms.
Thank you for that. Council's wishes. Councillor Larson.
I'll be the bad guy. I move that council deny the request set out in the June 15th, 2026 correspondence from the affected property owner for compensation for costs associated with the relocation, replacement, or replanting of existing trees affected by the fence relocation.
Thank you. Motion on the floor. Any further discussion? I'll follow up by saying that I have been in contact with these people, been to their houses, looked at everything, and I've always encouraged them to deal with Public Works. There was an assumption made that I had the power, being the Reeve, that I could just wave the magic wand and make this happen. And I referred that it comes to council, and I'm appreciative that it has come to council and the discussion has been here, because that is not my role. I've said our role is to set policies, and and different things like that. And this is council's decision. This is a fair democratic process coming down to a vote. So let the chips fall where they may. I'll call the question. That is carried unanimously. That concludes our public portion. We have an in-camera portion. We will do that after lunch. So what we can, should I come move us in camera now or just? If we could do that, that would be, everybody is okay with that? 15 minutes. Okay, I'll move us in camera at 11:54 a.m. I'll call the question. Vote first. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Glenn. That's carried. We'll move into the other room where we're going to have lunch after anyways and go on camera. Thank you. Resuming, motions arising from in camera. Nobody kept the motion arising to take the recommended action that was discussed in camera. It's going to come up. Someone can read it. Yes. Well, while you're in there. At 12. That was in, out was.
All right, I can do it.
Go ahead.
I move that council directs administration to proceed in accordance with the direction provided in closed session.
Thank you. Motions on the floor. Are we using eScribe? I have to log back in. That's okay. Is there any discussion on the motion? That's always a loaded question because in camera stuff, there can't be much discussion. I apologize. Okay. I will call the question. It's carried unanimously. That concludes our regular council meeting for June 16, 2026. We're going to, I'll adjourn this meeting and we just have some training following. Thank you.